Welcome back to another Babbling Nines video with myself, Mike, and Sloth today. A little bit of a debate here as we go into the transfer window. Obviously, Southampton have just got promoted. Congrats to them. So it's likely that Flynn Downes is going to be wanted. He's been kind of their main man this season. Russell Martin's, actively come out and said, Downes was the best player in the league by far, all of this stuff. And yeah, he really likes Downes. And then this is obviously coming out that they're going to attempt to make their current loan deal for Downes permanent. Now they're a Premier League team, which I think we all saw coming. So now it's kind of the debate is, do we keep Flynn Downes or do we let him go and allow the pathway in for someone like Freddie Potts to get promoted within? So let's just start with Flynn Downes. Obviously, he's had a very good season on loan at Southampton, was very integral for them getting playoffs and getting back into the Premier League. What do we do now? Because we've got a new manager. Obviously, Downes wasn't played in his preferred position under Moyes at all. He was kind of shifted out onto the wing. He was playing as a 10, just not who he is. So let's just talk about Flynn Downes' his ability, and then we can get onto the debate whether we would be keeping him or not.
Yeah, so his first season, he played okay, did well. In Europe, didn't really do much in the Premier League. When he did play, he was often played out of position. And often basically try to use how Moyes used Ward-Prowse this year as that defensive foil who can press very well from the front in that 10 position. It's basically what Ward-Prowse did this year and did it to a much higher and more efficient level. And you could argue, well, that's because that's not Downes' natural position, but that's not Ward-Prowse's natural position, and he played it and executed it to a much higher level. He's very neat and tidy. He will definitely keep you rotating. He will battle for the ball. However, there's not much more that's going to come out of Flynn Downes, in my opinion. He's already 25. He's talked about, when you listen to how he's talked about in some circles, you would think that we're talking about a 21, 22-year-old who has years left to develop. Personally, I think he's probably almost at his optimum in terms of where his potential can take him or where he can go in his career in terms of where his ability goes. And he had a very good season at Southampton. Best player in the league? No. Had Adam Wharton stayed in the league, it's an unfair comparison because Adam Wharton would have walked that because he's that good. And I think after 6 months, he was a far superior player. But he is integral to Martin. Martin had him at Swansea, was a brilliant player for him in his system. And he's been integral again for them this year. 2 goals, 2 assists. He's played a vital role. But that's it for me. I have no other emotional attachment to Flynn Downes. And he's lived the West Ham dream, right? Every West Ham fan's dream he has lived. In one season, he lived a West Ham dream. He got to play for his club, got to play in Europe for his club, and he got to lift the trophy. He's lived every West Ham fan's dream. But now's time to go, thanks very much. You've lived your dream. And let's capitalise on how much you're going to be worth for another manager.
This was his statistics from this season. So this is going to compare with the next 14. So this doesn't compare like Premier League, etc. It's kind of Championship, League Two in France, I should say. So yeah, I think as you mentioned, he's not someone that's going to score a crazy amount of goals and assists. He's a very tidy player. His passing is obviously one of his strongest traits, where he keeps it ticking along, but it's very risk adverse, I would say. Not much progression. As you can kind of see, progressive passes in comparison to passes completed in that percentile in the middle there is pretty low. And then interceptions as well and tackles is something that he's definitely stronger on. So I think with Downes, it's what type of player do you want in your system? I think if you want, someone that's going to play as an anchor 6, be very smart and tidy, keep the ball, play the simple pass, not necessarily make many risks or take any risks, that is kind of Downes. Whether that's enough to be, one of the top DMs in the Premier League, I don't think so. I think you need to be more than that now. As a squad player, I wouldn't mind it. But as you say, we're going to bring on to the Potts debate in a minute, but if you have the chance now to sell Downes for probably prime value for a club that absolutely loves him and will pay probably above what most of the market value would be, now is probably the time to cash in. You're unlikely to get this moment again. So Sloth, what would you be looking to do? Because it's as Mike mentioned, he's 25. He's back at West Ham now. He is technically a West Ham player. We've got a big rebuild happening this summer. Would you be looking to cash in and maybe promote within with Freddie Potts this summer?
Yeah, unfortunately so. I think it's very unfortunate for him. As Mike said, he's lived every West Ham fan's dream, but I think it's very unfortunate for him that he didn't get to play in his favoured position, his natural position, while under Moyes. But that's not his fault. That is entirely down to one person. And I think this season he's done us another great service in really pushing his value and progressing it forward. I think, had we just sold him off the back of that one season, it would have been, again, 10 million, 12 million pounds. He's doubled that almost. And I think when you look at the type of players that are around, the rumoured values, and also just the quality of play you can get for the value, I think we should be looking to sell and reinvest. And even if you're just looking at kind of championship centre mids, as Mike mentioned, Wharton is someone we should have been all over. But if you look at someone like Hayden Hackney or even James, who we've been linked with from Birmingham, who, in my opinion, it has got potential world-class level. He's rumoured to have been close to a move to Atlanta in January for 10 million euros. So you're talking again about half the cost of this, and potentially a player who is going to be willing to come in as a squad player, but also has shown he can play international level football. And, against Modric in the Wales-Croatia game, he absolutely dominated their three-man midfield. And I think that's the sort of player we should be looking for.
Do you think we should be looking in the market then to replace Downs, or do you think Potts could potentially step up and be that player to replace him in the squad?
I think when we're talking about where we want to be as a football club, I think you have to look at this as this is the next step. You can't just have a core group of players and rely on this small squad. You have to have competition from within. And if you're looking at, say, James and Potts, well, if Potts is good enough, Potts will force his way in and get game time. And if James is good enough, the same is relevant to him. But you can't have sentiment and say, we want to have a great academy, and so we're therefore just going to play these players. They have to, push, and they have to earn their place as well. And I think that's what someone like Earthy's done. It's consistently waiting for their opportunity and then taking it when they get it. So I would look to be signing another centre midfielder regardless. And whatever happens with Downs, we need to replace him. Mm-hmm. And then Potts can come in if he is going to be able to take the place of whoever comes in. I think that's going to be key, because there are still going to be things like injuries, cup competitions that we can rotate into, and this needs to be the sort of approach we have next season.
Yeah. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, for me, I've said anyway, we need another midfielder, regardless, because we have to improve on James Ward-Prowse and we have to improve on Souček. We need a player in the middle of the park who can sit with Alvarez, who's able to progress play, not only possession-wise in terms of passing, but also with ability to carry. Something we've lost since we've had Declan Rice. If I turn around and said that we don't need that type of midfielder, I'd be the biggest hypocrite ever. Because I've been saying it, even when we had Declan Rice, that we needed to ensure we brought in a player to replace him and have that player. So we need that regardless. And essentially that player then takes the spot that, Calvin Phillips had in the squad, right? Potts can be that player on the peripherals, but pushing. I don't see the point in holding a player who's going to be valued at around 20 million arguably this summer by us on a peripherals of a squad, because let's face it, he is not going to start over Alvarez. He's not going to start over Ward-Prowse, nor is he going to start over Souček. And I know Souček is limited technically, and Downs has a superior technical ability, you could argue. However, Souček brings you goals and he's brilliant defensively. He's not going to start over him. And the only other position is in that attacking midfield. He's not going to play there because if Paqueta gets off and we don't sell him because people are scared off because of all of this stuff, Paqueta's there. If not, then you've got Mo Kudus, who's likely going to be moved to attacking midfield.
Yeah.
So he's not going to get in that position. So why would you have a player who is essentially doubled his value, sit on the bench, and then depreciate? There's just no point. Just to have a squad player and have a feel good because he's a West Ham fan.
Yeah.
There's no reason to keep him other than it's the simple fact of the matter. The best thing what Downs can do for West Ham, or the best thing that can be done for us with Downs, and as harsh as it sounds, and this isn't a slight on Downs, this is just football economics, is the best thing we can do with Downs and the best thing he will do for West Ham is be sold for 20 million quid. Because that's 20 million pounds you can put into midfielder. And as Sloth said, there's Jordan James would be linked to. Would be linked with O'Reilly at Celtic, who has 30 goals and assists from midfield this year and is potentially valued at 25 million quid. So 5 million pounds more gets you a player who scored 30 goals. Or sorry, really involved in 30 goals. Yes, it's set at Celtic and it's the Scottish League, but even if you took half of that figure, you've got 15 goals from midfield.
You've got Kefram Thuram at Nice, players rumoured to be around £20 million. And I just think
Arno's another one that we've talked about extensively.
I just see, I see doubt. Like, I don't see it. I completely agree. We need that player that's going to sit next to Alvarez and be progressive and unlock teams and be someone that can be defensively solid, but also takes this midfield to a new level to be able to progress. What Downs is very safe and very good as a 6. We don't need, like, if he's going to be back up to Alvarez, okay, but when you've got a chance to sell him for 20 million and promote, like you say, Freddie Potts, who can play 6, that's his natural position right now. We can use that money to improve the other aspects of the midfield. It's not that we're trying to improve on what Downs brings. It's we're improving the 8 or, the slightly advanced next to Alvarez. So if we didn't have like a DM, then obviously we'd need to sign a different profile, but we're using that money to invest into someone like an 8 or, a bit more of an advanced player that can progress, like you mentioned. So I don't really, I see it more that way. It's using the 20 million to improve other aspects of the midfield that Flynn Downs doesn't bring. That's just the reality of it. So yeah, I think this preseason is going to be big for Potts. I think he's shown the talent within, when he was at West Ham in the youth team. This season, obviously, he's shown it in League One. Now is the time to prove to Lopetegui that you are ready. The same with George Urphy. The same with, I was going to say Mubama, but it's likely he's going to be gone. So this is like when a new manager comes in, this is your time to show them and make your stamp. Everyone's in kind of the same boat. Obviously, the more experienced players will have an edge, but the manager will be looking at youth. He said it. He's already said it. We saw in the behind the scenes. I thought it was a really, really good interview on the West Ham channel where George Urphy's there behind speaking to Lopetegui. You can tell that he wants to integrate youth.
Nervous as well. It's funny.
yeah, exactly. So it's I think it's good, man. I think Tim Steiden would have already told Lopetegui what youth players to look at. And this summer's just a way to reinforce that. And as you mentioned, if we can get 20 million for Flynn Downs, that is an unbelievable deal. It really is, considering that he hasn't really played much for West Ham and his value's gone up that much. It's a good deal.
Is it ever going to get higher? No.
Unlikely.
From this point, his value's only going to go one way. And that's why, and I know it sounds harsh, and I admit it is harsh because he doesn't deserve to just be shafted out of the club. However, we're talking about football and football economics, and we're saying how much we need to get in. If you have a player who's going to sit on your bench who's at the absolute optimum of what they're going to be for value-wise, and it's only going to depreciate over a course of a season, and then you're basically going to hope in January someone is desperate for a midfielder and willing to pay the premium rate you could have got based off the back of that. It's not going to happen. You're like, maybe if you're lucky, get 15. So you've missed out on 5 million quid. That 5 million quid could be the difference with, we've just talked about, say, O'Reilly, for instance. That £5 million, all of a sudden, if we didn't get him then and we wanted to get him in January, say he didn't move, and everything was on, we then got to find £10 million rather than 5 million. 5 million is a more achievable amount to find. So it makes sense to move him on. And, with Potts as well. And also, when you look at Alvarez as a DM isn't safe. He will do a Cruyff turn in the box. He looks to try and progress it. He's far more progressive with the ball than Flynn Downs is, and doesn't always like to try and play the simple pass, and will look to carry. Downs isn't that type of player, and if you want good CDMs throughout history having players that are brilliant at tackles, but can also progress it. You know, Lasana Diarra was a great example of that. Makaleli. These are players that have, in the past, played at Real Madrid. I know a really high level. No, I'm not saying, you know, but as a comparison, but these were players that were the best CDMs because not only because they control the defensive area, they could also control the ball and progress it. And that's the thing you need to look at. And whilst it's still young and early for Potts, for me, when I look at him, and I've said it a number of times, it's like this hybrid of Declan Rice and Michael Carrick. He can do the very simple passing that you need, but he has that energy defensively to kind of cover. He can move the ball, and he was for a loan player, for a 21-year-old to go on loan to a League One team in a very difficult, proper man's league, to not only win over all of the fans to the point of they've given him the player of the season, the fans have given a loan player the player of the season. His own teammates, seasoned professionals, have also said this kid was incredible. That's a player who's gone out on loan, taken the kind of bull by the horns and said, I deserve to be given a chance when I come back. Like with George Erfin, he's only had little cameos, but he's taken that moment to kind of make a big splash in the pan. And that's what Potts did. And Potts has made that point of he's performing like that at 21 in League One. This could be a kid that maybe we develop. And the other thing we need to think about is if we get Europe next year, if we keep Potts in the team and Potts does well and develops, next year Potts is not only a homegrown player for us because he'll be 22, he will also be a club trained player, which is vitally important for us going forward into those competitions. That's why we looked at Grady Dean Garner, because you need 8 homegrown. And if you're looking at Europe, of that 8 homegrown, 4 of them need to be club trained. So we need to start being a bit more internal in our recruitment, and sending a player for 20 million to promote a player from within is incredibly smart, because all of a sudden you've got a player you haven't had to buy that you just bring up into your team, and you've just made 20 million quid to reinvest in another position. That's just like the most simple economics of the whole entire situation. If you boil it down, take away everything, it's that we have a player from the youth team, we can insert into our team, we can develop for next year as well as this, and we have £20 million we can sell for a player that is blocking his pathway and gives us the opportunity in which to invest elsewhere, which we vastly and desperately need.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think that's spot on.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think we're as well, like we said with George Erfy, you can kind of tell if they have it or if they don't, coming through the youth, but you can just tell if they're a talent. And it was similar with Freddie Potts. Last summer, I think we were playing Bournemouth in pre-season friendly, and he was outstanding. It's obviously not the level, but you can just tell. You can just tell if a player is good.
It's just a next step, and can they take it?
Exactly, and he deserves that chance in pre-season. I'm sure Lopetegui's going to give it to him. So, yeah, this isn't anything on Downs. I think Downs is a very solid player. I think the move to Southampton is probably best for both parties. It's not that it's just selfish on us. He's also going to be a regular starter for Southampton and a key component for Russell Martin's team. So
that's absolutely spot on. That's the one thing we haven't talked about, is the fact that he can go to a manager who absolutely adores and loves him in a team that he's going to play every week. It's a great move for him, for his career. And that's the other thing. If you're him, play for West Ham, boyhood club, all of those wonderful things. However, the other one is I can actually now say I'm a Premier League player because I'm playing week in, week out.
Exactly. I think he wouldn't be adverse. I think he would quite like to move to Southampton, to be honest, if he's not going to be part of the plans as much as he loves West Ham. So, yeah, that's our opinion. Let us know what you think in the comments. Would you be looking to keep Downs next summer after a pretty impressive spell at Southampton? Or would you be looking to use that money to invest in the squad elsewhere in other parts of the midfield, and also see the likes of Freddie Potts maybe promoted into and integrated into the squad a little bit more for Lopetegui's first season at West Ham? So, yeah, make sure to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel as always. And lads, until next time.
Come on, you irons.